Welcome to Bay State Golf. I'm Sean Melia. I'm trying to play every golf course in the state of Massachusetts. That's 9 holes, 18 holes, public and private. Since June of 2020, I have checked off 151 out of about 350. Today, we're going to do a course spotlight on the Ranch in Southwick, Massachusetts. Before we get to that, please subscribe and like this video if you are interested in my quest and want some more information and just to learn a little bit more about the courses I have played. You can follow me on Instagram at baystate_golf. I also have a free Friday newsletter I send out. That's at baystategolf.beehive.com. You can sign up for that newsletter and get some more information and some stuff about competitive golf around Massachusetts as well. The ranch opened in 2001. It was originally a dairy farm. It was designed by Damon Pascuzzo. It is on a pretty extreme piece of land, and I think one thing that quickly stands out to me about the golf course is the fact that the clubhouse and the facilities are at the bottom of this hill. And then as you climb the hill, there's golf course and there's also some housing development that was built kind of in conjunction with the golf course. The housing development does not distract from the golf course though, which is always a good sign. You don't feel like you're in people's backyards playing golf. But it just struck me as interesting that you use the kind of highest points of the land for some golf holes and not a clubhouse providing what would be a pretty stunning view of Western Massachusetts. So I'm not sure the choice behind that. I kind of like it. I kind of actually love it, to be honest with you. Creates some cool shots coming back down to the clubhouse. The ranch is a par 72. It stretches out to 7,100 yards. The one-up tees are 6,700 yards. I think the identity of the ranch is that it is a long, tough, challenging course, but it can be unlocked after frequent visits. It has a great variation of holes. There are plenty of blind tee shots, which is kind of part of the unlocking. If you kind of know where you need to go, you can start to hit shots in the right spots. The green complexes are great, and it's a hard walk. It's in excellent condition, and I think it plays best when it's firm and fast, kind of nullifies some of that 7,100 yards because you can get some really good roll. You can bounce balls onto greens if you have a mid-iron or even a long iron into some greens. What does it cost to play the ranch? So on a weekday, you can pay $100. On weekends, it's $125. Now this is peak summer price. There are some shoulder season rates. It gets a little bit cheaper. The other nice part about the ranch that other places I would recommend should take on is their fees include a cart and driving range access. So you just pay your $125 on the weekend, you get a cart, and you get a bucket of range balls or however many range balls you want. So if you are interested in going to playing the ranch, getting there a little early and taking advantage of the driving range is probably a good idea. Now, as someone who walks, the golf cart thing isn't always a perk for me, but I know for this golf course, it can be a tough walk. It slowly wears you out because the land they do a nice job as far as the design of making you not feel like you're fighting the land, climbing a lot. You are climbing a lot, and by the time you get to the last 3 or 4 holes, it's like you've gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight fighter who's just kind of jabbed you and hit you with body shots for 4.5 hours. So while I am a walker, it is nice just to know the cart is included if you want it because it is a tough walk, and it's also awesome that there are range balls included. A lot of places do not do that and make you pay extra for range balls. So shout out to the ranch for just making it all nice and easy. I want to highlight 3 holes that are probably ones that would end up being discussed, at the bar afterwards with your buddies. Some interesting shots. These are not necessarily my favorite holes. They're not necessarily the best holes, but they're 3 that stood out to me as I thought back through my round and just, liked what I saw on these specific holes. The first one is the 4th hole. It's a 428-yard par 4 from the tips, and it is every inch of that yardage. It climbs steadily uphill the whole way. You've got to hit a really good tee shot. You're It's tree lined all the way up to the green. There's a little bit of a red hazard left of the green. There's bunkers right that just catch balls that, would end up in the woods if there was no bunker there. And the place to miss is short, kind of a narrow, skinny green that sits diagonally to the hole. So, it's a tough hole. You're hitting a mid or long iron into that green. The thing that stands out to me about it is it really is kind of the introduction to the ranch and what you're going to get for the next 15 holes or so. The first hole, second hole, and third hole are kind of play flat. They almost feel a little bit like Florida golf. You've got some water. You've got a short par 5. The ball moves pretty well just on the grass when it's firm and fast. The second hole is a little bit of a cape hole. You're just hitting maybe an iron out there. If you want to bite off a bunch, you can hit driver, but even that line is tricky to take. And then the third hole, you start to feel a little bit of the climb, but it's still more open. There's a little bit more space. And then the fourth hole you get to, and you're kind of in for what you're going to get the rest of the day, which is good climbs, a lot of tree-lined holes, but not tree-lined in the way that feels distracting or like you just spend all day in the trees if you're spraying a little bit. The holes are sneakily wider than maybe they appear as you play them, and that might be just because of the way the land can catch the ball as well. But the fourth hole is definitely the introduction to what you're going to get at the rest of the ranch. The ninth hole is a 537-yard par 5 that doesn't play that long because you hit down what feels like a ski mountain on your tee shot. The ball can end up rolling an extra 100 yards. You can hit 300, 350-yard drives if you hit the right speed slot, and the ball can just tumble way down. I think I had 120 yards into this green. It was downhill the day we played it. It was windy the day we played it, and 9 was one of the holes that we were able to take advantage of. And I think for me, the 16th hole is similar, and I can talk about that a little bit. But just as far as that second shot or the third shot, it's a pretty dramatic finisher to the front 9. There's more room left and long than you think there is, and when you're hitting a wedge or maybe even a mid or long iron or just any sort of iron from a downhill slope to a green that has marshland in front of it, it makes it a tricky second shot, even if you only have 125 yards in, because you're thinking, man, I could possibly make an eagle here after a long tee shot. The 16th hole has the same kind of dramatic land as far as the tee shot. It's a longer hole and it's a harder layup, but the 9th and the 16th, I'm going to cluster those two together just as far as holes you might talk about, because they do feel a little bit the same. They might be the most similar holes on the golf course when you play them. Everything else feels different, but those two are almost like cousins. But both of those holes will certainly be ones that are discussed, or you'll think about on the way home, or you'll think about when you're driving back to the ranch to play it another time, because they are kind of thrilling shots and they could also make or break your round. And I will get to that down the road a little bit in this video. The third hole I want to pick out here is a par 3. The par 3s here are, as a set, pretty good. And the 17th is probably the crescendo of the round in my mind. After playing 16, a good par 5, you get this par 3, and then in hindsight, once you get to 18 and you look back on the round, that 17 shot, it's downhill a little bit, it's over water, there are no bunkers on the hole. It's another one that visually, the first time you play it, looks and feels like you're hitting into a very narrow, small green, but then once you get up there, you realize there's more space than you think. As long as you can carry the water, you can get it over onto dry land, you're most likely going to have a putt. And if you don't, there's a little bit of a kind of collection area on the left that you could putt from. So there's more space up there than you think there is from that tee box when you play it the first time. And once you're on the green, you're not necessarily guaranteed a 2-putt. There's kind of a little bit of a bridge that runs through, like a nose that runs through the middle of the green to just impact putts coming across from one side to the other. But that hole is just a really nice setting and a nice spot. After doing a lot of climbing, it feels like you can kind of take a breath because 15 and 16 both are pretty dramatic holes as far as the land. Okay, room for improvement. I think every golf course has things that could possibly do to make it better. Some of these routes, sometimes I suggest things that are completely ridiculous and would never be done, but it's an interesting thought process, and this is the first one here for the ranch. It would be really interesting to see them flip the nines. And this is because 18 falls a little bit flat for me. I said 17 feels like the crescendo of the round, and it really is. The 18th tee shot is kind of blah. The green finishes across the road, closer to the driving range than to the clubhouse, and kind of the action going on up near the putting green, and just people milling about getting ready for the round, or people kind of milling about waiting for buddies to finish. So the ninth green would offer that setting. And like I said, it's a pretty dramatic hole. You could get some eagles, finishing out with an eagle, matches coming down to the ninth hole. That would be kind of thrilling. There's a lot of luck involved with that ninth hole, whereas the 18th hole is a little bit more straightforward, maybe a little bit more traditional closing hole. So it makes sense in that respect that the 18th would be the 18th, and flipping the nines doesn't quite do that. Also, I understand that those first three holes, like I said, are kind of a nice introduction, an easier way into the round. 10, 11, and 12 are pretty tough holes, and that could slow down pace of play and those types of things as well. But it would be interesting just to see the ninth play as the 18th, even just for an event or something that they do at the ranch every year, because it is a pretty dramatic setting. The green is right there. That would be cool. A more realistic idea or spot of room for improvement is the 9th and the 16th holes. When I played them in the fall, we were all playing it relatively blind. I had played the ranch in previous years, but I had not checked it off, so it had been at least 4.5 years, 5 years since I had played it. We hit some tee shots on 9 and 16, and the ones that we thought were good, we couldn't find, and the ones that we thought were maybe borderline, we did find. And I think just having some sort of like aiming post or some guiding light on those two holes for, hey, this is where you want to try to hit your tee shot, or if you're left of this stake, you're going to be in trouble. Just something that would just give people a little bit of a sense of where they need to hit their tee shot. It can be a little bit schlocky to have stuff like that, I understand, but for those two dramatic tee shots, and I'm sure there's people who feel like they hit a good one and they can't find it, and that's always kind of a disappointment on a hole when you feel like you hit a pretty good shot and you can't find your tee shot, and putting a stake in the ground wouldn't be that bad. I played Ozarks National out in Missouri, and they had a poll, and they basically told us, like, this poll you do not want to be left of. So it wasn't necessarily an aiming poll. It was kind of like this is the edge of where you want to be. So the 9th and 16th might benefit from that. I know there's a lot of luck involved with those two holes because they're just the way the land is, and maybe the way a ball is flying could end up. But just giving a general sense of, hey, this is kind of where you want to hit it might help. And then overall, just to wrap up these thoughts on the ranch, it is a golf course that is 100% worth the drive. I drove from Boston. I made it a day trip. I actually played 9 holes on the way out in the morning at Quabog in Munson, Mass, and then just continued the drive out to the ranch. I played it in October, and we had enough daylight to finish the round. I think we teed off at 1. We finished kind of in the dark. It was getting pretty late. We might have been one of the last few groups to finish, but I was home that night. So you can absolutely make a day trip of it, especially if the days are still long in the summer. You could go play in the fall and maybe play for a little bit cheaper. But it's just an excellent golf course. Tons of variation, tons of challenge. If you choose the right tee boxes, you're going to have a great day. Then at the end of the round, stop into their big barn and get a bite to eat before you head home, because their food is excellent too. It's just, the ranch dials up a really good day if you're looking for a good destination spot, maybe with some buddies, hop in a car, drive an hour and a half, 100% worth it in my mind to go play the ranch in Southwick, Massachusetts. So that's all I got for the ranch. If you have golf courses that you'd like to see me feature in one of these spotlights, please let me know. Please remember to like and subscribe. And finally, go check me out on Instagram, baystate_golf. And my newsletter, which comes out free on Fridays. That is baystategolf.beehive.com. I'm looking forward to playing more golf courses in Massachusetts and sharing them with you. We will see you next week on Bay State Golf.